Yeah, well, cool. Let's jump into it. Mr. Roy White, fixed rate and guaranteed.
Nice to meet you, Gene.
Yes, sir. You too, man. This is really the first time we've ever met, so I appreciate you agreeing to do this.
Yeah, well, we talked on the phone for 10 minutes, and
Yeah,
now we've met for 10 minutes.
that's right. So this is going to be just like a introduction type conversation.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like we're kind of aligned on the businesses and the size of the business, our location, and from the last 10 minutes of talking, kind of like our mindset on everything.
I agree.
So why don't you kind of introduce yourself and the business and what you guys do?
Sure. So Roy White with Fixed Rate and Guaranteed. We're a heating, air conditioning, duct cleaning company here in Southern Maryland. Our focus is definitely residential service and replacement, indoor air quality as well. I'm not big into the commercial world. You and I were just talking, don't do the new construction world. We just have found the risk reward isn't there. So we really focus on taking care of people in their homes, their families, and just serving our community because ultimately, yes, we're in business to generate a profit, take care of our clients, take care of our team. But ultimately, if we can just have a place where everybody comes to work every day, super happy to come to work, take care of our community, make new friendships every day, and pay our bills, that's just the kind of business I want to run.
Cool. So you guys mainly focus in just residential service work.
It is.
Yep.
We do some commercial here and there, but it's really more favors, like some of the funeral homes around here, a couple restaurants, but they're more so favors for the owners that we've built relationships with.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I think, so we dabble in residential and commercial work for trees and for site work.
Okay.
But me and my management team, we tend to kind of lean towards the residential work as what we prefer to do because you're kind of dealing with people that want to deal with you.
Yes.
And it's not just bottom dollar, just cheapest price gets the job type work, So and I tell people all the time, like we don't say we're the cheapest. I don't market it as the cheapest. And the commercial world's definitely just low bid gets the job.
Right.
And that's just not what we're good at. It's not how we're set up. It's not how we're structured. I try to pay my people well. So we're kind of in the same boat, but we're trying to decide if we're going to just go strictly residential or what. But, I mean, it sounds like that's the decision you guys made to do.
We did, and we're part of a best practices group, which has really kind of helped us with clarity on, what we want our business to look like. And it comes down to focus. It's really like, okay, when we show up at a customer's house, we know there's a 95+% chance we're going to have what they need on our truck to take care of it. Where if we're trying to be everything to everybody, take care of the commercial stuff, refrigeration, you're never going to be able to keep everything on your truck, without having a bunch of return trips, which that's a whole new set of challenges. So we just want to be able to take care of people, do what they need at the moment, give them recommendations, stuff that maybe want to do down the road, but at the same time, we can get them up and running right then and there.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then, I mean, your whole business model is structured, like we'll get into this, like your systems and processes, like from lead generation to reaching out to the customer to scheduling the crews to them then doing like a quality control or customer satisfaction survey.
Right.
And then it comes back to, okay, invoicing and then collecting and different payment methods, like the whole process. It's like the issue we're having in-house right now that I'm personally trying to figure out is when you have government agencies that you're billing, and then you have commercial work that you're doing progress billing on, and then you have residential work that you're billing when the job's done, and they all have to be handled differently.
Right.
They're all billed differently, and they want it structured and formatted a different way, and it just becomes chaotic. So like that's like one of the hurdles that I'm trying to juggle right now and figure out. Where like I feel like if you just said, okay, we're a residential service provider, this is how we bill, this is how we invoice, these are the payment terms. That's a standard practice across the board, and it just becomes routine.
It does, and
yeah,
9 times out of 10, I imagine you could probably collect a check at the end of the job, and that just helps your cash flow as a business owner because obviously your employees probably don't want to wait 30 days or 60 days for their money like you have to from these government agencies. So
100%. So we cut trees for State Highway, and they pay every 60 to 90 days. And once you get into the cycle of it, it's not bad. But, you don't get a check every week from them.
Right.
So I have to keep at least 2 or 3 residential crews going just for cash flow, because I'm floating 2 or 3 crews doing government work. So it's like, to cover all the expenses all the time, I got to have checks coming in every week.
So now you're not just a tree company or excavating company. Now you're a bank.
I'm a bank. Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
And that is another appeal on the management side of just doing residential work, is most of the time you get paid within a couple days of the job getting done.
100%.
Where the commercial work, you're acting like a bank.
Absolutely.
And on the site work side, I mean, you're not only providing manpower and equipment and material, but you're pretty much jump-starting the entire project. So like, say we're working for a GC, we're the first sub in there starting the whole project, and then until we're done, they can't bill their customer. And then, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not like they have any funds to kind of get the job jump-started.
Yeah, and ultimately they might use your money to give a draw to another contractor to get the next phase started. So,
Yep.
again, the bank gets extended out even farther because now they just use your funds
Yeah.
for something else.
And that is 100% of where my stress comes from now.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I'll expand on that. You and I, as business owners, we kind of have to keep this in mind, that 96% of all businesses fail within the first 10 years. So not only do you and I have to be diligent about how we run our company, understand our numbers, take care of our people in terms of team and clients, but you take a component like that where now for you in that scenario, well, these builders, how many of those are going to go out of business? And if they go out of business, what's probably going to happen to all the money that they owe you, right? So that's one reason we made a conscious decision that we don't do new construction, because we know just the risk reward just is not there.
Yeah.
Where by taking care of, people in their homes, I don't have to worry about somebody going out of business. No, we're taking care of them in their home, able to serve them, get paid most of the time the same day,
Yep.
or certainly within a few days.
Sure. No, it's definitely, in talking to you, it makes me think that it's the better business model.
For us, in heating and air conditioning, for sure. And I
Yeah.
got to believe in your world it probably is as well.
Yeah. The downside to it is logistics. Like, on the operation side, if you have like a excavation crew that's going to the same project for the next 4 months,
Right.
cool. Got a good foreman, good crew, equipment's there, materials scheduled to be there. They just, you know what to do. Just show up. So on the management side, it's like, if it's all set up correctly, it should be a fairly easy process. That crew's there making money for the next 4 months.
Right.
Residentially, it's like residential trees. Say I have 3 residential tree crews running. Well, they're all doing 2 jobs that day. So it's a lot of, you're coordinating with 6 different customers, showing 3 different foremen, 6 different jobs, billing 6 different times in a single day, and then also worrying about what they're all doing tomorrow.
Right.
So like, logistically, it's a lot of moving parts all the time. But it's faster paying. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I guess they both have their pros and cons.
Yeah, and you almost have to maybe create subcategories within departments, right? Like for us in residential, we have our maintenance division, we have our service division, we have our replacement division. So to your point, I don't want the same guy trying to run all 3 departments. Now I might have somebody overseeing all 3, but in the accountability chart, if you will, there's going to be somebody between him and the teams so that they can get that focus from a manager that says, okay, we know that what we need to do today, we know what we need to do tomorrow. Yes, we have for us, our operations manager that's obviously overseeing the P&L and making sure margins are there and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, that's more of a byproduct for us. Like, as long as you're priced right and taking care of your people, everything should just take care of itself. We're just monitoring reports.
Yeah.
But we need to know, okay, this technician should be doing 3 to 4 calls per day. So now we have a CSR in our office. Their job is to make sure that maintenance guy has 3 or 4 jobs for the day. Our service guys, same thing, 3 to 4 jobs per day, because we're not trying to just rush in and out, get as many calls as we've done like a lot of the big companies do. Like, no, we want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, educate everyone to, hey, here's everything I found about with your system. Here's some things I would recommend doing now, some things you could probably push off. But nonetheless, we can give them the time to educate the homeowners so we're not rushing our people. And then for those older systems that it is time to be replaced, now we have our replacement division where they go in, and typically it's a one-day change out for us. And to your point, where occasionally we'll get those attic jobs where you need to put a third, fourth, fifth person, especially in the summertime when it gets 150 degrees in an attic. But we're very strategic about how we schedule those jobs. So I kind of got this from the military, and I don't know if you ever read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, but he talks about how one person can only effectively manage like 5 to 7 people. So throughout our accountability chart, we make sure we have one manager for about 5 to 7 people, just so we can keep that focus on the jobs like you were just describing.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it sounds like it's an organized system for sure. And that's kind of like what I've been learning the last 3 or 4 years. As everything's kind of grown, you have to keep it organized because you can't manage everybody. And because if you try to, you can't hold everybody accountable. And then all you're doing is putting out fires, and it's just chaos all the time. So you get management in place, but then the management has to be very structured on the metrics they're tracking. If something does go wrong, how do you handle it? If you have to write somebody up, how do you do that?
Right.
And it's just getting all of those SOPs in place and trying to really dial it in. That's kind of where I'm at right now in the process.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've kind of been there, done that. You kind of have it structured. You know the system that works. You have accountability charts for every position. How long does it take to get to that point?
It is ongoing, I promise you that.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate. I hadn't even had a chance to share this with you. We were very fortunate. We actually just won Contractor of the Year for the whole Eastern United States and Canada as part of the best practices group we're a part of.
Cool.
And we have, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of contractors in this organization. So it's a tremendous honor. Like some of the people that have won that award before us are like HVAC Hall of Fame people and just people that I consider like legends, role models, stuff like that.
Sure.
So to win that award, there's a lot of people that kind of put us in a higher category and like, man, you guys have it going on. And we certainly do a great job, and I appreciate those compliments. But one thing I've learned, and the more that I did grow in business, I realized every day behind closed doors is not always bells, whistles, sunshine, right? We always have our challenges. And what I've learned is it's just how you address those challenges when they happen is really what makes the difference in a good business and a bad business. So one of the first things we did, I mentioned accountability chart, and you kind of expanded on. First thing we did, and this is just our mindset, doesn't mean this is the right way of doing it, but we literally flipped our accountability chart on its head from a typical org chart. So it's usually like, the owners on top, then there's managers, and below them is the field workers, if you will, or the frontline workers. So for me, I'm on the bottom. So my job isn't to be the boss, bossing people around. I want to be the servant leader that coaches and develops my people. So my managers, my job is to coach and develop them. So when they have those situations like you just described where maybe we have to write somebody up, hey, what is the right way of doing that? And 1 Minute Manager is a great book. We've used among our management team to kind of do things the right way. Like, hey, did we give them the coaching necessary? That was that a mistake on their part? Or let's look at ourselves. Is there something we could have done to put them in a better position where that wouldn't have happened? So we look at ourselves first, then we go to coach them. Yeah,
so like a current struggle that I'm having is like when something does go wrong. Well, first of all, like you're right. So when you get compliments from people, like they see the social media post where they're like, oh, man, you're killing it. You're doing great. It's like, right. Shit, man. I'm glad it looks like that, But so one of the struggles is like when I have people in place and they fail at something, one aspect of their job, it's not going well. It's like, is it a people issue or is it a systems issue?
Right.
Because then that comes back on me not having proper systems and processes in place to make it go smoothly. Or like maybe they don't know how to handle it because it's a shortage on my end of not providing the information. Now, but on the other side of that coin, it's like when you hire and have managers in place, how much can you lean on them to put those systems and processes in place? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Look, so this is falling short. Obviously, nobody knows what to do. You go ahead and put that SOP in place and hold people accountable.
Right.
Like, you tell me how you're going to handle that. And instead of me jumping in and saying, okay, well, this is how you do it, do that. Because then you're just you're not creating leaders. You're just kind of telling them what you want, not how to properly manage, I guess.
Oh yeah, you're far down the leadership path, because that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Is like us as contractors, we're problem solvers by nature.
Yeah,
kind of what got us in the business in the first place.
Correct.
So
and I struggle with that, but I consciously make that decision. Hey man, this isn't going well. You're falling short. Your team's falling short on this. How are you going to fix it? Like,
right.
what do you need to implement? And how are you going to track it?
Yeah, I have to stop myself all the time and just make myself say these words: "Is what do you think?" Like literally ask for their input, because they probably have a couple great ideas. They just might be looking for the easy answer, or they know you've faced it before, so it's like, hey, it's just easier to kind of see how Roy wants to handle it. It's his company. However, it's like, no, this is our company. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I agree with you. Let's try that. Or sometimes maybe I have a different idea, but I don't know that it's that much better. You know what? Let's try yours. And even if it doesn't work, hey, we tried something new. Or hey, maybe it works better than mine. So now they internalize that even better, and the buy-in is incredible. So yeah, really just the team morale, the mastermind, if you will. Mm-hmm. So we're very transparent. Like, we even share our numbers with our whole company, within our management team. I'm an open book. Like, I'll tell them, hey, I'm struggling on this. Could use y'all's help, and they all do the same for us. Like, hey, I'm having a tough time right now. Need y'all's help. We've had several situations where not only just in our management team, but the entire company has rallied around other team members to help them through tough times in life. So if we have one superpower, it's our culture. And I think just the accountability, the leadership.
Yeah.
A lot of people hear accountability and they think it's a bad word, but accountability done properly is actually a great thing.
Oh yeah, because that gives people clear direction, what's expected of them, how it's being tracked, like what metrics you're looking at weekly or daily or monthly or however. Hey, this is how I'm rating your performance. And then they know how to do well. They know how to excel because they know what they're being tracked on,
Right. And if they are falling short, now we can dig in. Okay, this number's a little short. What do you need some help from me on trying to address that? What do you think's going on? And maybe it's a broken system. It may not even be anything on them.
Right.
Yeah, we just changed the system within our install department just today. So we've tried, again, contractor of the year, right?
Yeah.
And going into busy season, we're changing something that will hopefully smooth out a couple of bumps the rest of the summer that we've been kind of fighting different ways to try to address. One little challenge, and it's nothing major. It's like behind closed doors, customers would never see it, but just stuff that's like cost us an extra hour in the shop, or like an extra couple phone calls, like, hey, this isn't working out right. So one simple change, just as a management team, we just had a mastermind session. A great book called Traction. Have you ever read Traction by chance?
Yep.
So IDS is something they teach. What's the issue? Identify the issue, discuss it, solve it. So we just kind of created a mastermind group and came up with a great solution that I think is going to really make the summer much smoother, when it comes to the install process.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. And that whole, that's kind of where I think it's beneficial for guys like you and I to discuss it, because we're in two different industries, but the concept's the same, right?
Absolutely.
Just business management, how to structure things, how to track things, how to hold people accountable, how to give compliments when they're doing well, how to structure bonuses, like incentivize people to do better, to make more money. Like that's stuff that I'm learning as I go. Like I'm not a business major,
Right.
It's just this thing's kind of growing to something that's requiring me to become better at it. So, but that's exciting. That's what I like to do, but it is a hard part, and I think that's why I like it, because it is a challenge. It challenges me to read books and to get people's advice that are more knowledgeable and stuff than I am. But it sounds like you and I are definitely in the same mindset there. I
agree. Yeah, you certainly don't have the size business you do if you're not doing some great things and doing things the right way. So my hat's off to you. Yeah. I don't know how old you are, but I can tell you're definitely younger than me. So my hat's off to you for what you've accomplished at a younger age.
36. So
that's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. And young kids, the whole deal. So, and actually, my team's all the same age, right? So I try to keep young guys with young families and keep everybody motivated, and kind of keep that priority. Like work hard, but then you go home and everybody here is raising young families. So we're all kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what are some other struggles that you guys deal with? I know in all the trades, one of the top ones is always finding skilled people, skilled labor, like your foremen or your field technicians.
Oh, yes.
What do you guys do to kind of handle that? Like, do you have a training program, or do you how do you find people to interview and hire? Like, how's that process look for you guys?
Yeah, so I'll probably ramble here just a little bit, but I'll kind of give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of our industry.
Yeah.
So the ugly part is there are way more people retiring from our industry than there are coming in.
Right.
So there's a major shortage in the trades. Now, I think there is starting to be a little bit of a shift. I think because of all the student loans and things with college, people realize, you know what, there probably is another alternative that is, quite frankly, better in some cases.
I think that's a shift, but that's a new shift.
I agree.
Like, that's just happening. So we might not see the benefits of that for a few more years. So
We've been pretty fortunate. We have, but I think it goes with the next part of it is because we have our culture as a superpower and we genuinely do care about our team and we've got a great community that really rallies around us, like in social media. I'm sure we've seen with you, got plenty of people refer you guys, people refer us. Mm-hmm. So we've been very fortunate that we've actually had a lot of great people come knock on our door. So where most contractors in our industry are screaming for help, we've actually got, quite a line of people wanting to get in.
Yeah.
The challenge is, which ones do we let in?
Right.
I mean, I literally had one guy come in my office and I literally asked him the question. I said, I was mentioning about our culture and that we were looking for great human beings. So he says, well, define great human being. I said, well, somebody that just genuinely cares about the homes we go in and taking care of their families. I say, and I'm thinking to myself, that's kind of an odd question. But so I said, well, let me turn that around on you. What do you call a great human being? He said, well, the only reason I ask is I've got things in my past. Like, I said, well, okay, what kind of things? Like assault, carjacking, manslaughter. Like, yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to send you into people's homes.
I can't put you in somebody's house.
Yeah. And then the opioid epidemic, like we've literally had people go take drug tests. And hint for some business owners that might be listening to this, apparently the urinalysis is not hard to fake. Apparently buy stuff online. Yeah. So I actually did a hair follicle. So recently sent a guy for a test. He walks in and says, oh, you have to do a hair follicle. He's like, oh, this is not worth it. And he walked out. Now, several of these people that we've unfortunately had to pass on are working for competitors. Now, I won't mention any names, but it's just, you never know who's in your home. So that's what we have to be super protective of, our reputation.
I will say that's one thing. We don't do much inside people's homes, right? And every once in a while, you got great customers. They're like, oh, just tell the guys come in and use the bathroom or whatever. I'm like, no, let's not even go down that route.
Right.
And it's not that I don't trust my guys. It's not that I don't trust the customer. But it just opens up a whole new door of problems you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I've always thought about that, right? Like interior trades or remodelers or HVAC guys or plumbers, you're inside people's homes. Like, how often does it come up where somebody accuses you of, oh, well, my wedding ring's missing or whatever? It's like, man, it seems like such a nightmare.
Yeah. Now, we've been very fortunate in this company. However, I did have a company that I sold back in 2005 where didn't know what I didn't know. And actually, fortunately, it was a friend/contractor that we worked with a lot. He called my business partner back then. He's like, hey, I don't want to make any accusations, but I'm missing a bottle of Tylenol 3 or, something like that. So we ended up, the guy that went to his house, that following day, we sent him for a drug screening, and guess what he came back positive for? So, that's always been in the back of my mind. It's like, you know what, I'd much rather stay small and not just try to put bodies in trucks like I think some of these bigger companies just kind of fall into the trap. And I don't know if private equity is a big thing in your world, but it's really entering our space big time. So now they're having to please shareholders with growth. Well, that's going to present a whole new set of challenges. So at least with us, we know we want to stay just family owned here in the community so we can just kind of grow at the level that when we bring the right people in, we can grow at that pace.
100%. And I think, that's something that I'm learning on the fly, because I hate to turn down work, hate to turn down new potential customers, just the whole networking thing. Like you go take on a commercial job and you're hoping, oh, well, maybe we'll lose on this one, but I'm going to build that relationship and it'll turn into something down the road, because that's a hard mindset to get away from.
Yes.
Especially like I have commissioned sales guys that work for me, and it's hard for me to manage because they get paid on how much they sell.
Right.
So it's hard for me to say, no, you can't, don't do that. We're not going that direction. It's a hard thing to navigate. And we're getting better at it, though. Just open discussion all the time. Like maybe that's not our path. Maybe that's not who we want to work for. Payment terms aren't right or the margin's not right. but it's still difficult.
It is.
Especially like when you're looking at your backlog of work and you're like, damn, like,
Right.
you know, so I don't know. That's a tough one that we're navigating right now.
Yeah. You are definitely on this path. And again, I'm not turning this into a mentoring session at all, because you've obviously got an amazing business here. But I
love the mentoring. Like, honestly, man, just open conversation like this goes a long way. It's like, am I thinking correctly? Am I thinking incorrectly?
At 36, I'm sure you can teach things to a 53-year-old. So I'm wide open to that. But I heard this saying a long time ago, and I really hold this one true, is sometimes what we say no to is more important than what we say yes to. Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to get the short end of the stick, whether it be our team getting burnt out, their families having to miss them. So, yeah, just every client is not for us.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to the new construction world, the commercial world, like we talked about. But even smaller than that, like I talked about private equity a little bit. There are several private equity companies that they'll market like a no diagnostic fee or a super low tune-up. And, you know, that's their marketing strategy. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Just if it doesn't feel right to me, I'm not going to do it. So for someone that wants somebody in and out of their house for $29 for 30 minutes, more of a sales call than a tune-up, okay, please, by all means, call them. That's not us. Like, we want our guys to have an hour and a half to 2 hours in your home, doing things the right way, charge a reasonable fee. And if that's the level of service you want, we absolutely want to take care of you and your family.
Yeah.
If you're just looking for the $29, 30 minutes in and out, won't see you again for 5 years, that's not us. So we kind of are happy just to stay with the client base that appreciates the service we bring. And again, going back to where we started, just having that focus of what does your business model look like, and stick to that.
Yeah. So maybe you can give me a little advice here. So something like we do, like the larger, like for our even residential work, right? What I'm having an issue with is we're constantly chasing new customers because we don't have like a return service type business.
Gotcha.
Like grass cutting. Every 2 weeks, show up. You can count on that revenue. It's going to be return business, preferably every year, and then every year for 7-8 months, it's going to be every 2 weeks.
Right.
Well, we go in, we do one large job. You know, it could be from 10 to 30 grand. But then we don't talk to them for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
So you're going to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and you don't have like that recurring revenue. Do you have that issue, or do you kind of have like maintenance plans in place? Like, do you have any advice for me on how I can kind of structure it to get that recurring revenue?
Yeah, I'd definitely love to think about that one a little bit more. And I'll give you one quick answer, but I feel like I'd probably come up with a better one, just to kind of taking more time to think about it. So we do have the maintenance plan. So we have about a little over 1,800. So that does work out really well. So we know one technician can take care of about 400 maintenance plans. So from a hiring standpoint, that's a great number to know, because, okay, when we hit 2,000, time to hire another maintenance technician, that kind of thing. Yeah. For you, to answer your question, if there's not some other type of work that maybe the client, might need a year or two from now, like, because again, I don't know all the different things you do or don't do. So I think, number one, some kind of leave behind so they know every aspect of your business, to know, is there something else around their property that you could take care of, maybe they budget for 6 months from now or a year from now. Outside of that, I got to believe within their neighborhood, whatever they needed, their neighbors probably do. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's creating some kind of referral system where now on the front end, while you're there, so maybe you can just kind of roll to the point you made earlier, okay, we got 5 guys on the job, probably only need 3 or 4. Well, man, now I could probably put them all there for 2 hours and then let 3 of them pull off, go take care of a neighbor. So maybe there's a way you can kind of create like the referral system where you get a huge discount now if you get one of your neighbors to take advantage of us while we're here. But even if not, even if you just want to see how we perform, make sure you're happy with us, and you refer us to your neighbors on the back end, hey, we're still going to give you a referral fee or future, whatever it may be. So again, probably nothing that you haven't already thought of, but that's just first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah, we do try to do a couple of those things. Like if we're at somebody's house cutting trees, I'll send a salesman to that address and be like, look, go hit all the neighbors, try to introduce yourself. Because at that point, it's not really a cold lead or like a cold call. It's like, look, we're working right there for your neighbor, Mrs. Jones.
Right.
So you know, she said that you might need something, and then it just kind of starts that conversation a little warmer, you know.
Right.
So we try to do that, but then you get busy, and then it's like, oh, well, nobody made it there today, like you know. So like,
Understood.
yeah. Going back a few minutes, you said something about the private equity and the HVAC business. I heard that it's not really prevalent in my world that I know of. But I heard like in your world and in the trades, you have private equity kind of buying up a lot of like small to mid-sized businesses
Yes.
in one region or one area. And I guess, what are your thoughts on that? And I heard that they were doing it to try to like kind of corner the market, and then they'll be able to kind of set prices. Like they might own 7, 8, 9 businesses that are all still operating under different names.
Right.
But it all comes back to like their corporate office. They set the price, they set the structure, and then they're kind of cornering the market on, okay, well, this is what we're going to charge for this.
Right. So I try to learn as much as I can about it. Not that I'm interested in selling or going that route, because I have someone that wants to take over the business, so it doesn't even tempt us. I mean, we get letters, probably a couple phone calls a week.
Yeah.
But I certainly need to be able to compete against it, so I've tried to learn a lot about it just for that reason. Typically, and I have a lot of friends who have sold to private equity. You know, they were just at a point they were burnt out and or just wanted to ride off in the sunset, you know, whatever it may be. So several of them have done very well, and I'm happy for them. For me, there's 2 reasons I can't do it. Number one, I care way too much about my team and our community. If I was going to move out of the community, well, I probably would just take a big old check, and my wife and I go travel the world and, you know, just enjoy life.
Right.
However, because I don't plan on moving, if I walk to Stoney's or Outback or wherever, you know, I might be going to eat, and one of my friends / clients comes up to me and says, hey, thanks for selling. They're raised our prices up, you know. So that would be bad enough, just because so many of our clients are our friends. But the even bigger part is teams really get pulled apart typically when private equity takes over, because it's a shareholder world. It's all about efficiencies. So you got people just looking at spreadsheets, and they're making decisions that affect people's lives based on numbers on a profit and loss statement. So they put things in place that just don't make sense when it comes to culture. So I would never do that to my team. So that's a big thing. Forget where I was kind of going with that point. What was your original question that I kind of went off on a tangent there?
Just what your thoughts are on the private equity thing.
I got you.
Because like I heard the same thing, and it was particularly in regards to HVAC.
Yeah. So typically,
and I don't know why. Like you know, like why is that kind of bullying your industry?
I'll tell you that one too. So just because my mind is short, I'll forget if I don't tell you the other point. So the reason, what they'll do is it's a 5-year business model typically. There's several different models out there, but the majority of them, it's set up to, they come out, they buy your company, roll you into either a bigger company or a group of smaller companies, and what they're doing is they're doing what they call growing EBITDA, which is kind of like net profit with some add backs. Mm-hmm. So growing EBITDA. So if they say they buy a company that they can pay 3 times earnings, well, they roll you into a package with 4 or 5 other companies. Well, now that same company is now worth 7 to 10 times earnings because it got linked in with bigger companies.
Right.
And now there's a bigger guy out there that will buy that whole collective group. So I forget what the term is. Maybe it'll come to me in a little bit. But anyway, so they're basically just trying to package companies and flip them every 5 years to a bigger company.
Sure.
So that's kind of the private equity model on how it works. The reason it came to our industry was really because of COVID. They've tried, there's been a couple roll-ups in our industry over the last 30 years or so. However, when COVID hit, it really exposed how important our industry and just home services are in general. Because when every other company, when all these other businesses were failing, think about all the restaurants that went out of business and just businesses across the board. What was one thing people still needed? They still needed heating and air conditioning in their home, still needed roofing, still needed plumbing. So the home services industry really got exposed in a good way for those the people that wanted to sell.
COVID did, honestly, man, it was good for us. We were busier than ever. People were home wanting stuff done.
Right.
Even like the luxury items like patios and, clearing out an extra half acre on their property or whatever it was. I mean,
Absolutely.
we stayed busy, you know. But yeah, that's like, that is interesting though that you brought that up, because I just recently read something about that.
Yeah, so like I said, we just have to be mindful of how we're going to not get pulled into their marketing strategies necessarily, just how we can compete against it and still grow.
In my opinion, the way you compete against that is you just kind of maintain the community vibe, you know, trying to just be honest, hardworking people from the community, and that's who people want to deal with,
right?
You know, in my opinion.
Agreed. I can't compete with their marketing, but I can still be the go-to person at Victoria Station because we got so many friends, clients who trust us.
Yep.
So yeah, and that's, sometimes I have to remind myself of that. Like, don't try to get pulled into their marketing. You know, I can't outspend them, so I just need to outserve them.
Yeah, yeah. Like, so that's one of the reasons for doing stuff like this, right? Like, you do the podcast because it allows people to kind of see who you are, how you talk, how you feel about certain things, who you're interacting with, who's in your network, and you kind of give them that, you know, that local community vibe, you know, basically. And, you know, that can't compete against the big dogs ad spend. You know, they might be putting their flyer in front of 85,000 people every 3 days on Facebook, but they don't have the, like the down home feel of like actually connecting with people in your local community. You
Agreed.
know? So
Yeah,
I think that's why this is important for guys like us, you know, like to just kind of put it out there. Look, this is who we are, this is how we operate, and then do business with me if you want to, you know.
Focus on operational excellence. That's one thing that I always go back to is like, hey, let's just do the best we can every day, and, you know, be plenty of people out there that will appreciate that we want to serve.
Sure. And on your operation, kind of explain how your operation works, like from the business standpoint, like when anywhere from lead generation to giving an estimate or a quote to getting a signed contract to scheduling the job to making sure the customer's satisfied after the job's done to invoice to collection. It's a long process.
It is.
For each one. There's a lot of different parts. And what I've found on our end is you figure out one and it starts to do well, then you're going to have a bottleneck in another part of that process because it hasn't caught up with the previous part yet.
Right.
So I'm working through it. And how does that work for you guys over there?
Yeah, and I don't know, again, because the industries are so different. For us, our foundation is our club memberships, which is our maintenance agreements.
Yeah.
So we're developing that loyalty with that client base. They know they can count on us to be in their home once or twice a year, take care of tuning up the furnace, air conditioner, checking for carbon monoxide, all the things that keep money in their pocket, not giving it to Smecco or BG&E, and obviously making sure, like from a carbon monoxide standpoint, the family's safe. Yeah. So we all start there with just serving and building that relationship year over year. And then ultimately one day, when it's time to replace the system, then certainly we hope they choose us to do that. So that's where, obviously, make more on an install than you do on a tune-up. So that's why a lot of these private equity companies, if you call them and tell them you have a 2-year-old system, we'll get there in September. You call them, tell them you have a 15-year-old system. Oh, we'll be there 2 hours ago. It's that kind of thing.
Right.
So, but it's because there's profit there. So just kind of pulling back the curtain there a little bit. But the reality is, we want to take care of people over a 10-year period. And hopefully when the time does come to install their system, we want to be the one they choose. But it's got to be about the relationship the whole way, because otherwise, we'd be no different than private equity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the internal systems, like with do you have like a sales / estimating team?
We do.
And then they sell something or close a contract or land a new client. How does that transition happen from that to your operations side where, okay, it actually gets scheduled and done?
Sure.
Because that's probably our biggest bottleneck right now is because I divided it in sales and operations. So sales is the first point of contact, gives them the price, builds that relationship with the customer. And then once it's sold, then we have to make the transition. Okay, well, you met with him, but now this guy's going to actually be doing the work, making sure that it gets done correctly. And
right.
So like that's kind of like my biggest issue right now. It's not an issue. It's just we're trying to figure out the most effective way to do that.
Yeah. For us, we have a couple of different options, if you will.
Yeah.
So we have more your service techs who, not that they're not great communicators, it's just not their passion. Mm-hmm. They really enjoy fixing things. So we'll put them on the jobs that more than likely just need a fix. But then you have other ones that are older that's, you know what, there's a decent chance that one might actually need to be replaced. So we might send the guy that's a little bit better of a communicator. But even with that, it's ultimately what's the best choice for the homeowner. So we're never going to go in and just try to sell something. We're just going to educate them, like, hey, here's all your options. Now, on those older systems, if it happens to be one of the guys that's not his passion to talk to the client and give them all the different options and maybe spend 2 or 3 hours talking about that, then we do have a field supervisor that they'll flip that lead to. The field supervisor goes over, just ensures, yep, I totally agree. It probably does make sense to replace this.
Gotcha.
Here are all your options, repair and replace. So again, we're never giving, if you don't give options, you're giving ultimatums. So we always give options. For those other guys who are better communicators and actually enjoy it, then they'll actually just take the time. And another reason why we only want them running 3 or 4 calls a day, now they actually have the time. If Ms. Jones would like to sit down and figure out what her options are, then they have the time to do that, and they don't feel rushed to just get in and out in 30 minutes or an hour to get to the next job. So slowing down really creates that space where, you know, we're not shortchanging people on what their options are.
Or you're not rushing through the process to try to get to the next one.
Exactly.
And I've been in that situation too. Like we'll sell like a handful of small jobs, and we'll try to schedule them all in a day just because they're all close. Okay, just dedicate this crew to that. And that's where your problems come up, because you're like, okay, you tell your foreman, okay, well, I need you to do this one, and then go to this one, and then go to this one. He's like, oh shit, okay,
Yep.
So he's rushing through it, and that's when stuff gets sloppy, or you leave the yard a mess, or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, the only thing we have to be like super careful of is in the summertime. You and I were mentioning it right before the podcast started. Is just we have to be very mindful about attics in the summertime.
Yeah,
is we want to keep our guys safe. Number one. So where a typical change out is really going to typically be 2 to 3 people. An attic job in the wintertime, probably send 3 people just for the amount of work that's there and just make sure nobody gets hurt. But in the summertime, there's days we might put 6 or 7 people on that job for like the first 2 hours just so we can get in and out of that attic before it hits 130, 140, 150 degrees. So, yes, the rest of the day might then be kind of a little bit of, okay, well, now what's that crew going to do? Probably still go home, because if it was 140 at 7 o'clock in the morning in the attic, they're probably still spent if they got there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So those, from logistically, that can cause a challenge, but I'll always take the backseat to keeping our guys safe is number one. We'll figure out the logistics behind that.
Yep. No, it's great advice. It sounds like you definitely have a very organized organization and good group of people. Where do you see the business going in the next 5 to 10 years? What are your goals?
We are super fortunate, like the amount of integrity and talent that we've been able to attract. Like literally our top 7 or 8 service guys could be number 1, number 2 guys, any company around here. So we've been very fortunate to attract a tremendous team. And our managers are like salt of the earth people that all these top people like look up to, learn from. The amount of coaching that we do is second to none of anybody around here. Like
sure.
we have we have 4 master's license holders in our company, where most companies don't even have one. They'll rent a license from somebody else, which is illegal, some of them in other states. But we have 4 master's license holders, and we're doing coaching all the time. So we like the farm system. Probably could have gone down that path, with one of your earlier questions, but we really want to develop people, because if they only learn our way, we're not trying to break bad habits.
Sure.
So where do we want to grow from here? We're kind of getting really close to the perfect size that I personally want to be. Any growth from here is really only to create some growth opportunities within our company. So if somebody comes in today, they have the ability to become a service manager or a field supervisor or whatever role they want to fill in the company. So as long as we can continue attracting the right people, keeping things happy, because there's no amount of revenue out there that's more important to me than us having a happy company every day, because, again, it's my friends and family that work there. So I'm just not a money motivated guy. As long as we're paying our bills, I want happiness.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like some of the thought process for me for scaling hasn't always been, oh, well, Gene McKenzie's going to make more money.
Right.
It's like I have a good team, and I have guys that I want to let them grow in their career. Well, I feel like as the owner, well, the only way that happens is if it grows to a size where everybody's able to grow their career, make more money, more responsibility. So you know what I'm saying? Like that's part of the reason for trying to get to a certain size,
Right.
so that you can retain talent. And the only way you retain talent is by allowing their career to grow here, and they can make more money and they can excel here.
Agreed.
You know, so like that's like a fine line. It's something I struggle with. It's like, okay, well, do we grow it fast enough where everybody's happy with the raises they're getting every year, or do you maintain a certain revenue mark and then just dial in your systems and processes? They might make the same money, but their day to day gets a little bit easier. It's less stressful.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a hard thing to kind of battle with as a owner. You know.
Yeah. Stephen Covey talks about it in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but starting with the end in mind. So you know, what does success look like to you, right? Like if you're somebody wanting to sell a private equity, not you, I'm just saying in general in the industry, someone wants to sell a private equity, they're going to run their company very differently than someone like you or I that just wants to be a servant within the community and have a team of happy people that genuinely wants to come to work every day.
Right.
I love what you said earlier about how the majority of your team is around the same age, has kids, so you all can kind of teach them to be better husbands and fathers, not just better excavators and better contractors, right?
Right.
And that's kind of one thing that we've taken is like we try to teach or coach up life skills and make each other better people, them making me a better man as much as I try to help them become better. But yeah, just having, again, when I say we're about the size that I'd like to be, anything smaller than like 30 to 35 people in every like org chart, accountability chart that I've ever drawn, anything below that, I could never find where I felt like everybody could genuinely do one job and not have to wear 2 or 3 or 4 hats. Because if you're wearing 2, 3, 4 hats, you can never do any one job super effectively.
Yeah.
So, but anything beyond 34, 35 people, okay, now that's just kind of a scale thing. So if the idea is just to scale for the sake of having a bigger company, helping more people, whether it be teammates and clients, great. I have no challenge with us or anybody else wanting to accomplish that. And again, just kind of coming back to starting with the end in mind, for me, I just wanted a model where all of our people could come to work, do a job the best they possibly can, and not have to be pulled in different directions. And then let's just scale from there with the right people. If it makes sense, if we just stay right at the size we're at now, I'd be totally fine. So again, it's just going to depend on the people who we have come in the door and what growth opportunities do they desire.
Yep. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And having the end in mind as you're scaling it is important, I think. And then trying to share that vision with your team. And be like, look, does your vision with how your career is going to go, does it align with what we're doing?
Absolutely.
You know, just having those open it doesn't have to be an argument all the time, just having that conversation, you know.
Sure.
Which I've tried to start doing that with like management and stuff. So
yeah, if you have a whole team rowing in the same direction, man, life is so much more fun.
So another part of the scaling, though, like the way, and you can I might be thinking about this wrong. You can tell me if I am. As a small business, let's say you only have like 12 to 15 people,
Right.
and you got one guy like your estimator or your sales guy who's responsible for like 70% of your sales. Well, if it's almost like if say he gets in a car accident, he's out for a month. Well, then that is a major hit to our operation because it's like, okay, who picks up where he left off? How do we know where each of these jobs are? Which ones what people were waiting to hear back from them? Like,
right.
So it's like hard to fill that role because that one guy has so much responsibility. Where I feel like if you scale it, it's like, okay, well, a $50 million a year company. Well, you got one guy that's out. Well, you have systems, processes, and enough people in place. Somebody should be able to, kind of jump at the opportunity to help and fill that role while he's gone. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh,
it's a lot less, I guess, risk or responsibility just on individual key players.
Right.
You know, so like I feel like scaling it kind of takes the stress off in a certain way, where it's like, okay, well, if Gene McKenzie's out, well, I got like 3 or 4 guys that know exactly what I do every day, and they can keep the ship going while I recover. You know,
I agree.
so that's like another driving factor for me for scaling to a certain size. Now I don't know what that size is though.
Got it.
You know, I'm still trying to figure that out. But it's like as a small business, I feel like you're very reliant on key people, and if one piece of that puzzle is gone, it's almost like the whole thing stops.
Agreed.
And it's like you're almost trying to get away from that.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about margins earlier, and that is a big piece of it. Is you have to be priced properly to have the people within the company to help things run smooth. So we're kind of going through this right now. We just had a hiring event probably about a month ago, and we're actually first hiring event we ever had. We had 13 people show up, and we ended up hiring 4 out of 13 people. So it was a epic success for a hiring event.
Cool.
So one of which I hired myself an assistant, and it's just for the same reason you said. Is it scares me to death that, hey, if something happened to me tomorrow, while I know I have a tremendous team around me, there's still way too much in my head that needs to be on paper.
Right.
So we utilize. Have you ever heard of Trainual?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've never utilized it though.
Yes, we utilize that. So one of her biggest tasks is, you know, on a daily basis, we're putting like all my priorities of things that I need to get accomplished. But over and above that, we have several SOPs already in place, but some of which we haven't looked at in a while. And are we using it? You know, is it the most recent version? Did the old version ever get taken out? Where now which version are we even giving to the new person joining the team?
Or if you hire somebody new, does that change the SOP on certain things? Like,
yes.
I know, man. Like I've got SOPs in place, but then it's like you have to update them every few months.
Absolutely.
Because your operation changes. You have more people in place, or you lose a guy, so now he's not doing his part of the SOP, so who takes over?
Right.
You know?
Give you a case in point, our bookkeeper is going to retire at the end of the year. So right now I literally have someone shadowing her every single day. Hey, here's what she does every hour of the day, this task, because I couldn't sit there and fill that bookkeeper role. You know? So yeah, we're doing it for every single position within the company.
And that Trainual program, that kind of creates those SOPs for processes and
there's things you can import, build your own stuff, pull stuff from elsewhere, put your own videos in there, pull videos from YouTube. So it's just a tremendous platform to house information, whether it's stuff you're creating yourself or even just importing from other places. Yeah,
no, that's great. And something else I struggle with is just the overall concept of like doing stuff like that. Like you spend 2 days just writing SOPs and having meetings and going over P&Ls. And it's like, well, instead of doing all this management stuff, if I was just active in the field, half these problems would be solved.
Right.
You know? So it's like, that's something I struggle with all the time too. Like,
well, it probably makes sense for you to get an assistant, quite frankly, just for that very reason. You can focus on doing what you're good at, and somebody else is kind of watching you in action, documenting that. And now, over the course of a year or 2 years, now Gene McKenzie can, maybe actually go off for a couple of weeks and not have his phone blowing up. And not only did the company survive while Gene McKenzie was away for more than a week or 2 at a time, it actually grew, because that's ultimately, do you have a business or do you have a job? And I'm talking to myself when I make that statement.
Sure.
Like, my wife and I are, because we have a tremendous management team around us now when we go away, we actually have zero worries. Like our management team, they are empowered to make decisions without us, and they are phenomenal people. So I know they're going to handle things the right way, and that comes with time,
Yeah.
But
I'm currently reading Ramsey's new book, "Build a Business You Love."
Absolutely, I'm reading it as well.
I haven't finished it yet. I'm about halfway through it, and that's that. But it also, like, I understand it, and I know the parts of our process that I still am way too involved in, and I know I need to kind of offload those tasks to people. But then it's also like struggling with the idea of, well, maybe I'm bringing on too much overhead, because then it's just putting strain on the margins and us having to be more productive every day. So it's like kind of a balancing act, right? Like I know I can't be in charge of doing all of these more so like office admin tasks,
right? But
it's like, well, if I hire somebody else to do that, then we got to do more, got another overhead position to pay for,
right?
But I think I'm every day, at least I'm thinking about it, trying to solve those issues,
Yeah. I love anything by Dave Ramsey. Different author, but next book I'd recommend to you after that is Buy Back Your Time.
Yeah, Dan Martell.
Oh, you read it?
I read that one, yeah.
Yeah, I probably listened to that book like 10 times, read it a couple times.
Yeah.
Like until I master it. I didn't want to move on and that's where I got the kind of the idea of hiring my assistant to start doing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. No, that's great. And that one, when I have these conversations with people, it's that book comes up a lot. I think that's definitely an asset for people to read.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, cool. Mr. Roy White, I appreciate you coming in and talking to us. I'm sure this won't be the last time we speak.
Yeah, no, I'd love to have you on our podcast one of these days.
You got it, man.
I felt like I talked more about our business and didn't get a chance to ask you enough about yours, so I'd love to dig into yours a little bit more.
Yeah, anytime, man. I'd be more than happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks again, and we'll keep the conversation going.
All right, sounds good.
All right, buddy.